Um, so this book, it released very recently, I think June or July of this year. Um, Coincidentally, I remember earlier this year, um, I think on YouTube, um, there's this person, Ranveer. He runs a podcast, the Ranveer Show. So there, very first time I heard of Sister Shivani. I've never heard her talks or read any of her books before. That is the very first time I saw her talk. Around the same time, I also heard her interview with Ankur Wariko on his YouTube channel as well. So somehow suddenly, this person came into my awareness space. Though she has been giving a lot of speeches, she has written books. I believe she has also, there is also a channel on Tata Sky or some of the DTH networks. There is a channel where she has done a lot of speeches, interviews and discussions, but somehow I've never heard of her. And this year, she came into my awareness, and I can say she has made such a big influence on many of my thoughts and the questions I had, the kind of doubts I had. I was able to get a lot of clarity through her voice, through her speech. So for me, it's quite special to share this book with you today. There is actually another book she has written called Happiness Unlimited. That book is also amazing. Let me share my screen. Okay. So if you listen to Sister Shivani for just say 10-15 minutes, right, you will automatically feel a sense of calmness. Her voice has that calming effect. She gives her speeches both in Hindi and in English. Um, just amazing to just close your eyes and listen to her. And I believe that she's engineer by education, so that is even more appealing to me, because the way she explains many of the spiritual concepts is quite logical. You would see a formula being shared, or lists being shared, point one, point two, point three. So it's very easy for logical minded people to understand where she comes from. And her language is very simple. The examples that she gives are very relatable. In her earlier book, Happiness Unlimited, it was a conversation kind of a style. So Mr. Suresh Oberoi, he would be the interviewer, asking many questions, and Sister Shivani will answer those questions in that book. There is also another book called Being Love. I've read half of it, yet to complete it. So these are the three books that I have read so far of Sister Shivani. She also has an app called thinkwrite.me, where I used to follow the daily affirmations regularly, but now there is a gap. But it's just amazing, where every day she shares a affirmation statement, and then there is an audio of her talking about why that affirmation is essential, how you can imbibe it, and so on. So it is a very guided path of a daily affirmation. It gives reminders on certain times of the day. So the app contains a lot more other aspects as well, but I personally like these daily affirmations. So coming to this book, The Power of One Thought, right? So it is divided into 12 chapters. So I've just grouped them into certain aspects. Obviously, because of time constraints, I wouldn't be able to summarize the entire book, but I'll try to convey key points that really resonated with me. So the basic premise of this book is that there are certain inherent qualities within ourselves like peace, happiness, contentment. These are inherent qualities, right? But we always tend to chase them outside. So we associate, only after we achieve a certain position or achieve a certain goal, then we'll feel happy or then we'll feel contented, right? So these are qualities that are already there, but we keep chasing them outside. And the second important aspect that we need to consider is that we have this false belief that our response depends on the external situation, external people, and their behavior. So whenever there is a situation that occurs and our response is truly dependent on that situation, right? So this is a false belief. And this she beautifully puts up as emotional dependence. Okay. So this emotional dependence starts right from childhood. She gives a lot of examples and she says that from childhood, we permitted ourselves to feel happy only when a certain pleasant, happy event occurred. So whenever, when we get a certain grade, for example, then we feel happy. Then our parents appreciate. Or when we, participate in a competition and we win, then we feel happy, right? These are like the patterns that get established from childhood, and that makes us understand that we are emotionally dependent on external situations. So this is something that we need to remember for ourselves, as well as remember as a guideline for parenting our children, so that we break this pattern of emotional dependence. She talks about two worlds. One is called the outer world. Okay. So outer world is all the things that are external to us, our external situations, people that whom we interact with, our work, our relationships, nature, our own body is considered as as part of the outer world. Then there is something called as the inner world. So inner world is where all our thoughts, feelings, attitudes, intentions, memories, all those comprise of the inner world. So the more focus we have on the outer world, and we delegate this responsibility that the outer world has to be perfect or matching to our expectations, only then our inner world will be in a stable state. Then we are creating that emotional dependence. For me personally, this book, there was one particular page that just blew my mind, and I think that is something that I wanted to share that page with you all. I posted this page on my review as well on Instagram. So here in this page she talks about, we are waiting for the outside world to become perfect, only then our inner world can be perfect. So this is the expectation we all have, right? Yeah, I hope you can see this page. Okay, so here she talks about why in current generation, if you think about it, if we create this dependency on the outer world, right, it is even more problematic for our inner world. Why? Because there is quite a lot of uncertainty in the outer world. And the outer world, the situations that happen have become more and more uncertain. And if we make our mind dependent on them, then our reactions will also become uncertain, because we don't know how to react. These are unexpected, uncertain situations. So when both outer world and our inner world become uncertain, then we often feel clueless, lost, disconnected, right? Making us feel anxious and fearful as well. So this particular passage alone, I feel it's like an eye opener for all of us. I just thought about this paragraph and just imagined a child's life of today. Okay. So imagine a small child. She comes back home from school. She has her snack, and then she freshens up and she wants to go out and play. Then she goes out and she rings the doorbell of her friend. Then the friend's mother answers the door and says, oh no, from today she has started piano class. Then the child feels so disappointed, right? Earlier, maybe say 20-30 years back, children knew that at 5 o'clock everybody comes out and starts to play. That is like a very predictable scenario, right? You always have access to your friends, right? Most of the time. But today, the child's schedule has become so busy that the child doesn't know when her friend will be available to play or not. So when she rings that doorbell, there is this uncertainty. Today, will my friend play or not? Right? That is one. Second, so the child feels disappointed, comes home. The father comes back home at 7 from work. And now today, the child asks the father, can I play with you? The father says, no, I have a call at 7 p.m. Think 20-30 years back. Once our parents come back home, they are available to play with us, to talk to us, or to help us with our studies, right? But today, when the parent comes home, we don't know, or the child doesn't know that the parent is he available or is he not available, right? That uncertainty comes up. And being in social media, you might have experienced, if we tie our happiness to the likes, to the comments, right? There is always this uncertainty whether that algorithm will put your post in front of the audience or not. So if it puts, it's a surprise. You get more likes, more comments, you feel happy. If it doesn't put in front of the audience, you feel disappointed, very few likes, very few comments, less reach, right? So this uncertainty in the outer world is increasing so much. And few days back, I experienced this personally. So I used to watch all these Harry Potter movies on Prime Video earlier. Then for a few years, I think last couple of years, I haven't watched any Harry Potter movies again. So I casually looked at Prime and I was shocked to know that it is now a paid, you have to pay for the movie. It's not part of the subscription. You have to rent it. So see, these are like, unexpected sudden changes, right? Earlier, when you switch on the TV at say Sunday evening 5:30, there will definitely be a movie. Which movie we don't know, but there is a certainty 5:30 there is a movie, right? There was a certainty to our expectation. But now, if you have a lot of access, that uncertainty sort of shocks us, surprises us, disappoints us. So we always need to maintain a certain degree of detachment from the outer world to keep our inner world in peace. So for me, this one point is like, it clarified so many things on why we are saying that mental health is on a decline, why so many people are facing issues like depression or anxiety. This sort of clarifies, right, in a very simple way. So the second point is that she says, when we talk of our responsibilities, we might think we have responsibility towards our work, towards our children, towards our parents, towards society and all that. But she says our very first responsibility is to maintain our emotional state, to be aware of our emotional state. That is our very first responsibility. Only when we get into this emotional independence, where the outer worlds don't influence, but we are dependent only on ourselves, right? So she breaks it down as independent. So you're dependent within, right? And not out dependent. So it's a nice play of words which convey the meaning that that she wanted to convey. So always ask yourself, who holds the remote control of your mind, right? We hand it over to anybody, right? So if a random stranger puts a trolling comment on your post, then you feel like you get so angry that the entire day, the same thought goes, how dare this person can write such a comment, right? All those thoughts keep running in our mind. So we hand it over to anyone in this today's age. So we need to be very careful who has that remote control of our mind. And there is another way by which we become emotionally dependent whenever we blame someone else for our situation. So this blame game, it creates a dependency. Whenever there is a dependency, it depletes our inner soul power. Okay, so the more we blame people, the more we blame situations, the weaker we become. Okay, where the victim mindset sort of sets in and we feel weak. We feel not empowered to take on the situation and overcome it. The other point about responsibility, I think this is something that we have discussed in multiple books. Responsibility can be broken down into response plus ability. What is our ability to respond to every stimulus, right? So situations, whatever happens in the external world, they are beyond our control, but our response to that situation is completely in our control. And she says that this is again something to think about. She says we create our own emotions, and it's not just about creation, it's also about the intensity of it, whom to create that emotion towards, how much to create it, right? All those are within our control. So when we say a situation has happened, you can turn the perspective, oh, this was a stressful situation. Instead of that, you can say the situation was tough, I created the stress. They behaved rudely, I created the anger, right? So this is how we can reframe how we think about a certain challenge or a situation that comes our way, and the emotion that we respond towards it. So now when we think about responses, right? All our behavioral responses, what is the origin? What is the source? It is our thoughts, right? So she says that the right thought will create the right response. So if we are able to formulate that right thought, then a right response will be given to a situation. But what happens is that many times we react. This reaction is like automated. We are on autopilot. So because we have learned it through conditioning, we just react whenever such situations occur. So these reactions are impulsive and they have a ripple effect, right? So whenever you react to a situation, then you will see that the subsequent events of that day or that evening, you will see that you will feel jittery, you will feel short-tempered, you will snap at children or your spouse for no fault of theirs, right? So these impulsive reactions, this has a ripple effect, and it has the potential to affect your relationships as well. So a response is nothing but how do we consciously choose how to behave in a particular situation. So she says, and this is like simplified way, but this is the truth. Choosing a healthy response is just one thought away, right? So the response that we give to a situation, it has a lot of impact. It creates a lot of impact both within us as well as among our relationships. So choosing a healthy response is on our end, and that is just one thought away, right? So that is why she says the power of that one thought. Okay, so this is the basic premise of this book, and now we go into how these thoughts are getting formed. So that is where she talks about the power of our mind. Okay, so the first thing she says is that what is the purpose of a thought? When we say a thought, why is a thought even needed in the first place? So the thought, it helps us, it prompts us to take actions, right? And it helps us to create the desired outcome that we want. And she says every thought matters. So this is most relevant from a karma theory perspective. So when you look at how karma is getting created, karma is created by not just by our actions, not just by the words that we speak, not just by the behavior that we show to the outside world. It also, karma gets added depending on the thoughts that we have. And thoughts outnumber the words and actions. So you might say nice things to somebody, but in your mind, if you're brewing negative thoughts to that person, then again, the karma gets added. So thoughts outnumber words and actions. So she says, you cannot stop thinking, right? They say that we think 65,000 thoughts per day or something. I don't remember the exact number, but it's a huge number, right? So you cannot stop thinking, but you can discipline your mind to think right? That is within our control. So she classifies thoughts into 4 different groups, 4 different buckets. So the first is pure thoughts, right? Pure thoughts are nothing but they make you feel powerful. They make you feel more positive and elevated. Pure thoughts are selfless in nature, right? Examples could be like thoughts that you feel that radiate peace, compassion, love, contentment, kindness, gratitude, acceptance, etc. So these are all coming under the bucket of pure thoughts. Okay. The second one is called neutral thoughts. Neutral thoughts are like, it doesn't have any quality attached to it, right? So it is related to all our roles and responsibilities. So you might think around 6:45 a.m. today, okay, 7 o'clock, I need to join this Zoom meeting link, right? That is a task. So I need to do this task. I should call this person. I should go and meet this person, right? So these are all like neutral thoughts. It doesn't energize ourselves. It doesn't deplete our energy as well. So these are neutral thoughts. The third kind is called the toxic thoughts. Okay. So toxic thoughts takes away our peace and stability. So toxic thoughts is like when we feel a lot of negative emotions like anger, greed, jealousy, fear, worry, stress, right? All these are called the toxic thoughts. Okay. The fourth kind is called the wasteful thoughts, and that is where our majority of our thought energy gets depleted. Okay. Toxic thoughts, yes, but for normal people or for normal day-to-day activities, the toxic thoughts, the percentage of toxic thoughts is less as compared to the percentage of wasteful thoughts that we have. So wasteful thoughts, they carry no constructive purpose. Okay. Where we just keep ruminating over the past. We think about why this happened, why this person said so, oh, on this day this happened, right? And we think about situations or things which are totally out of our control. Oh, she shouldn't be wearing this, she shouldn't be talking this, she should not be posting this, right? We think all those wasteful thoughts which have no real purpose, no real value, right? Ruminating about the past, worrying about the future, and we think about other people's behavior, past judgments in our mind. We form opinions about things that have no concern with us, right? So these are all wasteful thoughts. And she says that as per research, 85% of our daily thoughts come under this wasteful bucket. Okay. So these wasteful thoughts deplete our mental energy reserves. It lowers our vibration. It lowers the soul power. So that is why even though we might be leading comfortable lives from a physical point of view, we feel mentally tired or fatigued at the end of the day because these thoughts keep running and it takes away the mental energy. So in a day, just observe your thought and see in which category does your thought fall into. It is very hard because, the moment we become aware of our thought, we have to process it and see, okay, which bucket it falls into. The mind has already thought of something else. It is a challenge, but you can see some patterns emerging where most of your thought gets spent, right? So why are thoughts so important and why we should be concerned about it? Because thoughts have a ripple effect. So thoughts lead to feelings or emotions. Feelings lead to creating a certain sense of attitude. Attitudes force us to take a certain action. right action, or we behave in a certain way, and repeated actions lead to certain habits being formed, and she calls this as sanskars. We will come to what it means very soon. And then eventually that leads to shaping our personality, and eventually that leads to forming our destiny. So thoughts create our destiny. That is the basic premise, and she explains it so beautifully how these transitions happen. I have just taken a few pointers from there. So she says, series of thoughts give rise to a feeling. Okay. So when you change your thoughts, your feelings will change. Okay. So one example she gives is that two people going through same experience. Okay. The feelings that they might have created, right, it will be different. So um, so what she says is that if the stimulus was responsible, okay, for creating the thought, then both people would have the same thought and the same feeling, right? So you might think, let's say two people feel feverish, right? One person will think, okay, now have got a break, I'm going to chill and rest, right? Doesn't bother too much, takes rest and recovers. The other person thinks, oh, I've got fever, I'm not able to do anything, right? This is killing me. When will I get up? I have so many things to do, right? So they go into that other extreme, right? So the same fever, the responses are different, right? So the stimulus is not really responsible for our feelings, right? So we always think that the stimulus is responsible, but how do you explain this? When two people go through the same experience and they feel differently, their thoughts are different, right? So repeated thoughts or series of thoughts that give rise to a feeling, and those feelings start to shape our attitude towards the world. Attitude is nothing but the filter through which, a mental filter through which we perceive the world and experience it. Okay, so if you ask people, what is your attitude about drinking coffee or tea, right? The question might give you different responses, right? If you ask me what is my attitude towards, I only drink tea, I don't drink coffee. So for me, tea is like a space of emotional relaxation. It is a time to connect within, right? That's how I associate tea with. But if you ask somebody else, that person might say, oh, tea is acidic, tea, you shouldn't drink tea, it is very addictive. The attitudes will be totally different, right? The second larger than life question, which is, what's your attitude about climate change? Some people might say that, oh, climate change is going to destroy the world, it is happening so much, right? Some people might say it is like, everything is fine. Climate change is like just created, this has just been talked about so much, but there's nothing happening in real, right? There'll be like multiple perspectives and attitudes that people might have, and based on these attitudes, our actions and behavior might change. So what is our attitude will determine the actions and behavior that we might take forward. So the actions that we take, those repeated actions become our habits. And there is a difference between habits and sanskars. So sanskar is a Hindi word. I'm not sure if it is Hindi or Sanskrit, but so habits, she associates habits with physical activities. So we spoke about tea or coffee. So you get into this habit, that is this physical activity. Sanskar is an emotional pattern where given a situation and you exhibit a certain emotion, and if you keep repeating it, that emotional pattern sets in, right? So that is why she calls it as that's what she calls it, as a sanskar. So yeah, we spoke about climate change. If, for example, if your attitude is like, oh, the doomsday is near and you feel helpless, then you will start worrying more about it, right? You won't take any action towards it, but there's just this constant worry, and that is the emotional pattern that sets in. So habits and sanskars, they lead to shaping our personality. Personality is nothing but cumulative result of all the thoughts, feelings, habits, attitudes, and sanskars that we have. Okay, so sanskars are the building blocks of our personality. So how do you react? For example, you react calmly to a situation, or you just snap, right? All these are the building blocks. So when people say this is my personality, I worry constantly, right? So you can trace it back to the thoughts that they have had that led to them becoming a constant in a constant state of worry, right? So personality eventually shapes our destiny. So through our personality, we keep emitting certain energies out. So the energy that we create through our every thought, word, and behavior, the same energy that we receive it back as a consequence. And that is karma, and that is the destiny. Okay, so is destiny is something predestined, right? What she says is that what is the energy that you're sending out now, right? That will determine your karma of the future. So it is still a free will. It is still in your control. Whatever energies you have sent out in the past, right? Those energies are coming now. That is destined to happen. So this is how she links how our thoughts lead to destiny. Okay, so then she talks about 3 doorways to thoughts. Okay, so we spoke about beliefs in the previous book summary as well. So belief and the labels that we associate, right? All those become our beliefs. So whatever labels that we hear during our childhood, if our parents said, oh, you are lazy, you are like not helping around, or all those things that we might have heard during childhood, those become our beliefs, right? So beliefs are formed mainly during our childhood days, and it gets reinforced more and more through people calling out those labels. It gets well established, so that our thoughts are influenced by the beliefs that we have. The second is the content that we consume. So she says that everything that we hear, see, read, watch, write, and converse, right? All those she calls it as content. So we have to take that extra responsibility to consciously curate the content that we consume. Okay. And she mainly talks about how the current media and social media are influencing our sanskars, or emotional patterns of aggression, worry, fear, jealousy, hatred, comparison, and so on. So it is our responsibility to curate the content we consume. The third doorway to our thoughts is the past experiences. So as we said, we ruminate over the past, we relive the past experiences. So the only way is to not carry that burden of the past, not carry that emotional baggage. Practice letting go, accept, forgive, and forget. So these are some of the aspects, and she has gone into detail, which I've not covered here. So I will stop here now, and we will resume at 7:40.